Okay, here we go. Another episode of the More To It podcast. I'm the host, Jay Moore, Hail Varsity Magazine, hailvarsity.com, and we have to discuss another heartbreaking loss to Iowa.
And if you say moral victory once in this hour, I'm going to punch you.
No moral victory.
On this
there's
podcast.
there's stuff to be positive about, unlike last week. There's stuff. We tried to do the whole moral victory thing with Ohio State. That was a very moral victory, just because it's first game, and obviously Ohio State's really good, but they can't even play football right now. Really interesting spot they're in. But as usual, post-game reaction on NET's Big Red Wrap-Up. Tuesday nights, myself, Michael Severe, Sean Callahan. Guest this week is Hail Varsity's own Erin Sorensen. She'll join us. So be sure to tune in on Tuesday nights, NET, and then Thursday nights as well at 10 p.m. NET World. And come check us out, see what we have to say on there. So, coming into this one, expectations weren't high. Let's just put it that way after that performance. But I just knew they would get their defensively. I thought they'd get their act together. I was a little concerned with Colin Miller being out, but defense got their act together and they played really, really well. But I mean, your expectations couldn't have been very high for this one as well, right?
I think we sat here and discussed this and said if they win this game and they look good, it's kind of like an all-heel. And obviously we didn't get the W, but we did have a lot of positive things that happened. I felt like the number one thing that you and I F-bombed over for an hour and 15 minutes was the grit, the toughness, the type of stuff that you think a 90s Scott Frost is going to teach. I felt a lot better about that. I think we showed that, especially defensively. Are we gonna reserve 45 minutes for the O-line? I just want to be clear.
Well, we'll get in.
When I start cussing.
Yeah, no, we'll get into this. You know, there was. I mean, again, we saw a lot of good things, and granted, it was defensively. When you look at the overall stat line, I mean, they only have 322 total yards on 75 plays. Iowa ran 12 more plays than we did, and we had 338. But you held a team who has been very successful running the football this year to a total of 129 yards on 45 attempts. That's 2.9 a carry. They flat out defensively, and we'll start with the good here defensively. They flat out got after their ass in the run game. They were physical. They tackled well. They set the edge really well. And the only one they got us a couple times on the backside. You kind of get those cutback lanes. If you're just got your eyes in the wrong place, they can crease you there. But overall, they came and they brought it. I mean, there's a play I'm looking forward to break down on Tuesday night for Big Red Wrap-Up, and it's Damien Daniels. Dude, Iowa center. I was talking to Michael Severe just a little bit earlier this afternoon, and he said Iowa center might be a first-round or second-round pick. And Damien Daniels, if you guys remember, he had the one tackle for a loss, I think in the first half or late in the first half, early in the third quarter. I mean, he knocked him 3 yards in the backfield, ripped off of him, and made the play in his opposite gap. I'm like, whoa! I haven't seen anything like that.
It was a
in
flash
while.
you needed to see from him. And what's very positive about the takeaway from the defense is we took away the strength of Iowa, and I think we've got the talent in the secondary to be able to be taking teams to a one-dimensional type attack just like that. Stop the run, make their quarterback come out, and obviously you don't do that to the Lawrences of the world who could lace you for 450. But this was the strategy, this was the game plan they wanted to implement, and they did. I think we play that game at Memorial Stadium, just completely blank Illinois from your brain for a second.
Sure.
And we win that game. We finish that drive off at the end. We don't make that last mistake. And you're looking at a 1-point win on the road against a team that's very hot. I mean, think about if Northwestern doesn't lose and Iowa beats us. They're looking at a top-ranked team, and they're cruising. I mean, they had a bad loss at the beginning of the year to Purdue, but they just roll midway through the season at the back end. And I thought we were facing off when they were the hottest that they've been, and we came out.
No, they're playing good.
And we came to play. Did they look at us a little bit and think, maybe we'll focus a little bit on next week? I don't know if they have the talent to have that kind of comfort, but I was very happy. Not super happy. but very happy.
Yeah, nice thing is when you come out of a game like this, where you played your worst of by far the season on all three phases, you practiced your worst in all three phases, and you came out and you said, yes, our practices were more energy, they're definitely more physical, and obviously you did not get the result you wanted, but it just shows you like what you have to do week in and week out.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not fun. It isn't luxurious at all. It's a grind, but to win football games in the Big Ten, in Power 5 conferences, you got to practice with a kick-ass mentality and a demeanor that this is every play you're taking is a game rep. And I don't care if you're going against the first-team offense or a walk-on guard from O'Neill, Nebraska. Like,
that's right.
You have to have that mentality. And they had it. Like, defensively, overall, I mean, they were defensively, this was another great performance. They played well enough. You know, 26 points. You know, you hold them to 3 after the dropped punt by Cam Taylor-Britt. And, again, you put them in a good place. So, obviously, that's a bright spot in this game. And you can build defensively. Again, you can build off of that and just say, hey, okay, we practiced well. This is what we got to do because we shut down a really high-powered running game, and they really couldn't piss a drop for most of the game. So let's keep rock and rolling there. But now that's flipped on the flip side is offensively. I loved. Let's start first. Adrian Martinez starting at quarterback. Love the call. Had to be made.
Yep. And I don't want to hear a lot of the conversation about McCaffrey's the future and we need to just buy in on because he had a shot and he didn't show that he had the complete package right now. And he's young. Mm-hmm. But Peterson, even though they were rotating a few times, I felt the game flow was still very quick and the decision making was great. Iowa is a tough defensive team. We moved the ball decently. But going back to the muff punt, there it was, our program, ready to turn the corner. You feel like you're controlling the game on the road against a good team, and then you just bang yourself in the foot again. And that is the turning. I mean, think about that doesn't happen. We get a minimum, you pin them on a punt, or you get 3, or, God forbid, a passing touchdown. Do you remember those? I had to YouTube them. So
We've had one this year, right?
Yeah,
I
had to YouTube them to see what they look like in our jerseys. It's been a while, but you get 7 there, that game's over, unless you make a game-altering mistake like we did. So that was disappointing to see because I sat here right where you're sitting, and I said, "Well, we're just about to turn the corner as a program," and we took another step back. And I was discouraged after that because then I felt like, okay, here we go again. And Iowa came out and they played a tough second half, and we came out with a little bit juice in the third quarter, but our second half woes continued, and they finished the game out at home. And that's what good Iowa teams do. And if you're a good Nebraska team, you pull that game out against Iowa. So there's a lot to. I mean, if you take a look at the offense. I like the flow. Martinez, he earned another start for the Purdue game.
Definitely.
McCaffrey was used in good ways. Robinson was used in good ways.
I like the bringing. They went like two series back and forth. I love that. And you kind of just say, okay, let's give them even amount of series in the first half, then potentially go with a hot hand in the second. Mm-hmm. And Luke did some good things. They had the nice 4th and 1 call when he was in there. They ran a little. I don't know. It was a clever call. He picks up about 5 or 6 on a 4th and 1. But this offense, just the flow, the ability to complete a pass over 10 yards when Adrian's in there. And Adrian has the ability to run. I will say I still notice, like, when you want to get tempo going with this offense, and things do just seem to look a little quicker and crisper with Luke. But that really hasn't equated anything for us this year.
It looks good.
It looks great.
But it hasn't transformed into massive amounts of touchdowns.
So it's like, what do you want here? It's like, it's like, it just doesn't, it looks kind of good, and it makes you like, okay, this looks crisp, but this doesn't equate to points and production. So I know people are, people are watching again with it. The offense just moves quicker. I'm like, so what? Like, he doesn't produce it. I mean, he hasn't produced anything.
Doesn't score quicker.
Right, we don't.
I'll tell you that.
So like the system. I like what Adrian was able to do. But again, we can sit here and discuss all we want about the inability to complete a pass over 20 yards, the inability to get the run game going. But again, this offense will not be anything until this offensive line starts performing better.
That's right.
And that's just start. I mean, there's a reason why I think Nebraska defensively is better this year because they're playing better up front. They're physical. They're taking care of the run. And in most instances, like obviously the Illinois game was an anomaly far this year. Let's hope. But the offensive line is just. I thought it was going to be the bright spot of this team and this offense. That's why I thought this team was going to go this year. And
the largest problem is the mental mistakes.
It's the holdings. It's
we're
going to get into this whole snapping issue too as well, because I
feel like my 4-year-old snaps the ball better and is more accurate and much more enthusiastic while he's doing it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just you cannot be successful, and we're not. No, listen, Nebraska isn't good enough talent-wise to overcome these mistakes. We're like, like the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously they're the best team in football. They can be 3rd and 15 and be like, or 2nd and 25. It's like, no problem. Whatever.
They got 50 plays that can go 15 yards, and we've got 3.
Right. So, but looking at the O-line issues, it just seems to be whenever you need a play to be made, and it's a big-time moment, that group lets you down, whether it's a snapping issue, a false start, a holding, or you're flat out just get beat one-on-one and you get sacked, fumbled, and the game's over.
And as a defensive lineman, when you're playing a bad offensive lineman,
there's nothing better.
It's easy because they're second-guessing every step that they make. So if he's supposed to block down on you, he makes that less second mental error where he checks his right before going. You've already beat him. Mm-hmm. We've had so many situations where that's been the case. It's been a mental breakdown of responsibility, not of talent or effort. But now you start to see that mental toughness is just not there. That's because you see the penalties. We gave up 3 sacks, not bad, but you're also only threw the ball 22 times. Maybe a little bit more, 25.
We
got
had
3 of them.
We were 21 of. We threw the ball 21 times. How about we were 21 of 25.
Yeah, 25 times, but you get sacked 3 times.
So we can pull it. We were 21-25 for 195. We averaged 9.3 an attempt. No passing touchdowns. Shocker.
What's that? I want to see more nutsack on the offense. What do you have to lose at this point?
Well, we gotta be nasty.
Air it out.
It's just they're just you don't.
It's not like you've got a bunch of running backs that are playing.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole other issue too.
No
but again, if even Diedrich was healthy or whatever he's dealing with, I think to be frank, it's a lot of more off the field issues, some medicinal issues.
Yeah.
if I could put it
nicely.
Yeah. It's just. Anytime you look at in games in the past where boom they get things going. You look at Illinois. We go to score on the 1. Cam Jurgens holding. Mm-hmm. We get 3 points, and that's a win for the defense. That just flips some momentum. A lot of drives, false starts, or it's something. It just happens with the offensive line, and it's just those guys have played too many snaps. Now, I'm okay if Bryce Benhart makes a mistake. Okay, he's a young kid. You're going to happen. But for Farniok, for Hymas, for even Jurgens, for as much as he's played, it's like, come on, guys. I'll give Iowa's D-line credit. Like 54 is nice. He is good. Like the guy that made that play, and he gave a nice little club chop there on Farniok on that last play. That was slick. That was really good. And he got NFL written all over him. So
doesn't make you feel much better.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But it's always puzzling to me. I'm not in the meeting rooms with Greg Austin. I don't know, but again, we discussed this last week, and I just always have had this mentality that every year things are going to get better. Things I did poorly last year, you're always a golf analogy, but like everyone has a fault, right? Like in everything they do. Like there's some things you do really, really well. Like for me, like I was able to play with in football. I was able to always play with good vision, and I could see like the mesh, and I rarely ever got tricked on bootlegs and screens. Just had a kind of good feel. But
football.
Right. But the other thing was like where I kind of struggled with it was depending on what side I had I lined up on. Like I couldn't flip my hips as well to like rush a passer. So I had to work on things like that. And it just was always a fault. And in golf or whatever, you always have something you have to work on to eliminate that fault that you have. And it just seems like these faults keep popping back up
they're not getting over
with a lot of guys that play a lot.
That's the little things that experience and working hard and getting the things in order. You can't go be a superstar without having the fundamentals correct. I hated talking about fundamentals.
Right.
I still hate it. But they are the most important because that enables you, when that stuff is sound, you can go. Mm-hmm. It just increases your speed of the game because you're not mentally worried about the small things. And we don't have that. And that's the stuff with when you're gaining expertise with repetition, both in practice and games, that should fade. And those problems for our offensive line just still seem to be there, Jay.
Yeah, and I just try to think, I always go back to, if they're struggling, what are they doing in practice? How are they preparing? How much individual time are they getting? Are they getting enough individual time to work on things? Are they getting a good enough look in scout team? Or is there too much brother-in-law going on? Mm-hmm. And for the listeners, brother-in-law is, it happens quite a bit. Some of these older guys will be like, hey, take it easy on me today, Mm-hmm. And then, the young guys are, okay, yeah, I'll be easy on you. But that's not good. You don't need that. And usually, and hopefully Coach Austin, Coach Frost, if they see that, like, hey, knock that shit off. Like, give him a look.
I did all the time. I had a deal with Richie Incognito. We had a 2-year deal. I know how we're going to run practices, and we were going to renegotiate after year 2. So we had trust me, there's one person you want to make a deal with. That's the one you want to do.
God, I used to get in fights a lot. Just because I hated, there's sometimes I could,
Fights are good.
Fights are great. No, they're good. But sometimes, I remember times in scout team, my freshman year, where they would not let me come out. I had to take every effing. So it's that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of option looks, taking on powers and
it's not an easy
traps
job.
And just getting my flipping head kicked in for a whole year. But then they're they get after you and make sure hey, I remember, Coach Teneper and Coach Young and even Coach Solitz come around. If they saw you kind of half-assing it, they'd be like, that ain't cutting it. You can't do that because you're not getting these guys better. So I always wonder if that's if they're getting the right look or enough effort in the look team, out of the scout team guys. And I don't know who's helping, if it's a defensive GA or offensive. Usually an offensive GA helping that out.
But you got to think in our program with Frost being the coach and where he's come from,
right.
In terms of his coaches, you think that can't be the case. But
I wonder too if they practice tempo in practice and they just kind of go and because you get some. I've been a part of some programs to where they don't really teach it or stop and teach it on the practice field. They want to teach it in the film room afterwards, which to me is, if I'm a coach, that's not the right way to go about it.
It's ineffective. Most athletes are repetition learners.
And you learn well in the field because once you get in that meeting room, a lot of times you're kind of half checked out, you're tired a little bit, it kind of goes one ear out the other.
Right.
But if you don't fix it and make you do it again, then you're going to have these issues that keep popping up.
And it's the small things. People always say it's a game of inches, but it truly is. The mental thing that I could never get past at middle linebacker was remembering which side of the block I was supposed to be on. Was I supposed to leverage the ball inside or spill it to the outside? All I was concentrating on was reading the play. Then if you had a fullback coming at you, you wanted to light him up, keep him off balance, or you had to drop back and pass. For whatever the play was going to bring you. But I could just never do that, and it just took so much stress on our safeties. And then I figured out, okay, just know where you've got to put the ball. You're not necessarily going to make every play and make every tackle. You got to sacrifice the guy to the safety, but you got to put him in a position to make a play. I just couldn't overcome that. And then one day, it just made sense to me.
Right.
And all I did was turn around to look to see where Bullocks was standing.
Right.
And if he was outside me,
right.
I knew I had to spill the ball
right.
too. If he was inside him, I knew where to send the ball.
Defensive football is making sure everything is going towards your help and understanding your role. Like, it's okay if I'm, there's a blitz and I'm, for instance, we ran a ton of zone pressures and I was always a drop guy.
Right.
So I know everybody was.
You're the reason we ran them. So if you didn't like them, stop being good at coverage, Jay. Yeah, they won't call it.
I know it took it for all my sacks too. It sucked. Anyways.
I got a bunch of those.
So if I had a blitz coming towards me, I know like, hey, all my help's inside. Like I can't spill and make this ball bounce. I got to leverage everything and set the edge and force it back inside where all my help is. Now, vice versa, if we're just in normal base, we ran an under front, I get down, boom, I see a puller, I go wrong arm that thing and spill it and make sure the ball bounces to everyone else that's outside of me.
That's right.
I mean, it's complicated,
that's
but it's
gap
not
football.
Right, that's not that. But we're kind of getting off. We're just talking about responsibilities, is understanding your role and understanding your job.
It's not always be a superstar.
No, it isn't. And that's the thing about we're still talking about O-line is that's the most selfless job you have.
Absolutely.
Because when the offense is going good and things are humming, you rarely get any of the praise.
No, because you're not getting on the stat line.
No, but when you're struggling now, like they are, and if I had a percentage this thing, why the offense struggled, I would honestly probably have to say, is 75% too much for the O-line? Or would it be more like 60?
Jay, I had this in my head thinking, okay, what makes a good O-line, bad O-line versus... Imagine lining up with your high school team and the other team's junior high kids. That's essentially what you want, right? Because it doesn't matter who you hand the ball back. Your grandpa could run it in with an O-line dominating like that. So I would say even a little bit more than 75%, because if they're really good, everything else kind of heals itself.
No, it is. I mean, you get more time.
Time in the pocket.
You get more time in the pocket.
People in the box.
Then if you can run the ball, then they're putting more people in the box, and all of a sudden your passing game becomes a little better. It would help if Dietrich would be back. Sure, that would help. But
help a lot.
Because he's able to get those tough, 3-4 yards.
Yeah.
He can break some tackles and run some guys over. It's just through now what have they played? 5 games or 1-4? 1, 2, 4. Yeah, they're 1-4.
It's just disgusting to hear.
Yeah. And I mean it's you just wonder when it's going to click. But it's never going to click. We got to talk about this when I just get so frustrated because I flip it out when they can't line up 10 guys. They only come out 10 guys on a punt and they fake it. I don't know if they were planning on faking it, but you can't get 11 guys. You can't run an offensive play if you can't snap the ball.
For common sense.
Period. And he has issues, and there's major issues.
So you know this better than most. So I'll be interested to see where you go. But it's not necessarily what could be very frightening. Is it can't necessarily be a talent thing. It's not like he can't snap the ball back to him. It's because he's mentally focused on another area, or he's quick stepping to try to get where he can because he's not getting there in time. And that's what would be really frightening. If he's just bad at snapping the ball. Come on, Coach Austin, let's get someone who can snap the ball. Mm-hmm. But if he's really mentally not there, and that's why he's making the mistake, that's a little bit more frightening.
Yeah, there's ways, I've heard other people, there's different ways to do, shotgun snaps. You kind of hold the ball traditionally, and you hold it more by the laces. But then you see some people that, put the tip of the ball, and you hold it by the tip. And he said that's Matt Verzel. Just played O-line in Nebraska and teaches O-line at Omaha Scott, and a good friend of mine, and makes a hell of a pizza, by the way. He said you just grab it by the tip and you just flip it back. It's like a flick of the wrist.
That's it.
And it doesn't come back.
Minimizing your error.
And you can't put too much heat on it because that's a problem too. Some of those things are coming back like Nolan Ryan, Mario Rivera, 97-mile-an-hour cutter coming in there, and good luck. So it's that. I mean, that has to get handled, and that hurt us last year, and it's hurting us this year at the worst times. But the other thing I want to get into is this whole clapping thing.
Oh my gosh.
So Ohio State kind of, I think like they feel like they were the first team to do it like 4 or 5 years ago with the clap.
Is that Braxton Miller?
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's a way of a different silent count. I don't know if that's because you're in home game or away games, it's louder. I don't know. I feel like hearing a clap for a snap would be, and sometimes you can fake the clap to get
movement,
to get some showing, to show what they're doing in coverages and stuff. I get that.
But it's illegal for defense to say set hut or set or hut.
Yeah, it's illegal.
But it's legal for them to clap.
Yeah, you can clap.
You can clap all you want.
Right. And there was obviously Frost saying that Juergens was hearing snapping from the sidelines, and Ferentz was like,
that
"Yeah, I don't
can't
know."
be the case.
But I did see someone on social media did post a coach clapping a couple times in that game. So it's interesting. But here's the thing: if it did happen, or if it didn't, even if it did happen, you should still be able to snap the ball back to the quarterback, right?
Yeah, you could distinguish a clap that's 25 yards away.
You should still be able to snap the ball even back to the quarterback on point if the clap's coming from the. But you should be able to distinguish. A clap from 25 yards. Now, if the guy's literally over center and going.
Do you want to do it right now?
Yeah, right.
Do you want me to go across the room? Right.
And they would flag that.
Absolutely.
That. They would flag it because that's mimicking a cadence. They would
don't
flag
have
that.
To, though.
So I don't know. Maybe change. I don't know. You're not going to change it. But it's a coach snapping. I mean, again, this is what's the one annoying thing. And I'm as a player, or as a coach, you want to take your player side, but the excuses that kind of just keep coming sometimes.
I didn't like the Riley comment. You
You
just alienated a handful of your players that had no control over whether their coach, the decision making of who their head coach is,
right?
Or when you're recruited.
The excuses. That's the only thing. And he's like, he says, "I've been doubted here before," and like, sure, some people are doubting. I'm not doubting him at all. I'm not doubting him when I believe wholeheartedly he's the guy. And it sucks? It's going to take a lot longer. Yeah, it's terrible, but I think that's kind of the situation he was brought into, and I think it was a lot worse than what we honestly thought. But I also just get tired of the excuses, man. Like, it wears me out. Just, you know what?
I'd rather Scott sit there and say, I think if we had a little bit better left tackle and left guard, that we'd be able to compete in one more game. Might as well just be honest. I mean, you're trying to save someone's feelings who knows that they're not playing well.
Right. Call some guys out a little bit.
Right.
And that's okay. There's a way to get some guys going. And maybe obviously he knows his players better than we know him, but and maybe we're a little more. Are we old school? Are we old school?
I don't want to admit that because it would mean I'm old.
God. But I'm just used to.
I think
coaches,
we know what works.
Right.
I think we're looking at this team saying, "Well, this is the issue. Why aren't we?"
I think everyone needs to get kicked in the ass. I do. If you can't handle, like you said on here before, go play soccer.
Well, I know that, but I was waiting to discuss this with you. Now you got a good young kid hitting the transfer portal because maybe Frost was too hard, benched him because he wasn't performing, and they pushed him a little too much. And do you think the student athletes of these days, we're old school, or are they soft now? Or are they just all soft?
It's funny.
Don't do it, coach, or I'll transfer.
Right, well,
I'll go to Miami of Ohio right now.
Right. I always wonder. I always think about that too. It's like, him saying certain things about I keep wanting to say Christian McCaffrey, but about Luke McCaffrey. He's a future of our program. And I'm like, is he really saying these things? Does he mean it, or is he saying because he wanted him to transfer? But I'm like, again, God, is that the world we live in now? Is you got to just suck up and just play that game? I mean, to me, I would have a hard time recruiting those type of kids if that's who you're bringing to your program, where they're so
maybe they're
soft.
All like that. Maybe the rarities that we have so much common with on our maybe that's rare now.
Well, it is. I mean, how many? You look at big time recruits that came in when we were there, and one comes to mind is Marlon Lucky. Marlon was a hell of a talent, but Marlon was extremely mentally soft.
Yes.
Like multiple
And I
times.
like Marlon.
Marlon was great.
I was a great guy.
If I saw him right now, I'd give him a hug.
But out of our 4 running backs that
we
we
would
had,
get on him in workouts, and he would start crying
buckle.
and want to leave the field and quit.
Yeah, he wanted to buckle. It had to be at his pace, and that's not how it works.
No.
It's the team's pace.
Yeah.
And we call him out. And do we have teammates calling each other out now, or are they too worried they're going to get hard? You know, are they going to go viral and then they're going to end up, getting a bad rep? Oh, who cares? But that's just the type of world that they're dealing with right now. And you can't get on a guy because he's going to threaten to transfer. I mean, they're approving more and more in and outs. So why wouldn't kids think, well, this is just like, I just become a free agent. I'll go find someone that's going to kiss my
This year's
ass.
going to be interesting just because of, it's a free year. Everyone, you can leave if you want, or you can come back and still have another pretty much an extra year eligibility with as a whole another can of worms that's way above my head with recruiting and numbers.
It'll be a difficult situation.
That's a whole separate pod for Greg Smith, who he's with recruiting with Hell Varsity, and he would have a way better hand. But that's always like, God, is that what we have to deal with? Because you'd get on guys and they'd come in and they're not finishing their workouts, they're not doing stuff, they're late, and you just get tired of it, and you say something to them, and then they would respond, and guess what? They're not late anymore, and they show up on time. But if you're going to play this game where you're afraid to get on your players, and we're speculating and just having this discussion because obviously it's an issue in today's just dealing with kids today, because they come in, and this is honestly a byproduct of how good great our fan base is here, but it also is a detriment because any recruit that comes to Nebraska, we immediately anoint them as, oh man, he's the next Amon Green. He's the next Grant Wistrom. He's the next, Tommy Frazier. He's the next
Corey McKeon.
Yeah. and so again, get them at social media, blah blah blah. Oh man, I can't wait. Blah. And some of these kids are like, damn, like must be pretty damn good already.
And they haven't done a damn thing yet. They haven't taken one rep.
No, and then they come here and you're like, whoa. Because I know when I first came here, I had no idea. I was feeling pretty good at myself, but came here and like the first week of training camp, I think we already told this story maybe of the pod that you and I did way back in April. But I was like,
I'll humble your ass pretty quickly.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. I am literally on the lowest pole of the totem pole. Like I am down super low. And
there was a third locker room. I'd be in the third locker room.
Right. I had no business I'm gonna come and play as a true freshman.
I never thought that.
See, I thought I could have a.
Well, you're a big son of a bitch too,
But I'm like, oh my God, first week, I'm like, oh my God, I got no shot. I got zero shot being able to play.
And it just humbles you, and you listen to the leader. I always felt like these guys know what they're doing. I don't. I just got here. I don't care what kind of talent I have. They've done it before. And that kind of kept you in line and made you want to get better because you wanted to impress the older guys. But now if you got this softer generation just thinks I just got to do the rep and that's it. That's not. We always did a rep because it was going to make you better.
Right.
Just go through the motions.
And if you didn't do it right, someone was yelling at you.
We had fights all the time.
Oh yeah, there were fights,
and they were always good. It was good for morale.
Fighting is
no
good.
one got hurt.
Fighting, I know, I don't know if fights happen, but fights are good because it means people are getting after it, and people are getting pissed because someone's getting their ass kicked and they probably don't like it.
That's right. And I had never. It was always an offense versus defense type thing, but those were the best practices. Mm-hmm. That's when things were competitive.
Yeah.
You had to have your head on a swivel in every rep. Those are the type of practices, the type of drills that make you better, and bond you as a team. You're backing up your defense. And it's petty, but you get tired of hitting the same guy every single time. It's a tough racket.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But when you get a chance to get fired up and you're not trying to injure your own teammate, but you want to get your point across, then the next rep was always the best rep because then you get to go.
Right, and you always knew the defense was winning because the Callahan would just be like, "Give me the ones again, give me the ones again, give me the ones again." We'd yell there and be like, "Oh boy."
That was always the negative.
That was
having a better defense than an offense.
Well, and you have an offensive-minded coach too.
Yeah, because you keep whooping them and they keep extending the drill.
You're like, God damn!
And we're like, we're not going to let up.
Right,
you better just blow the damn whistle.
Right.
Next drill.
Yeah. So getting back to me with O-line, I mean, God, something's got to change. Something's got to happen. Whether it's they want to institute the players run things. They take care of each other, get on each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's
gotta have the players to do that.
And that you have to have a certain nastiness to do that as well, and a certain mindset. I don't know, like today's kids are brought up that way to do that. Like to me, if to get on your teammates, I feel like you have to probably come from a tougher upbringing, to where your dad and your mom got after you a little bit.
Yeah,
and you had high school coaches that got after you a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot. And so you're used to that. But it's just again, I hate the excuse name. I'm trying to find excuses why the nastiness, the toughness is now with this O-line group. I don't know. Because you see it, but you see it, right? You see it with the defensive lines is great. I don't if that's with the new D-line coach with Dawson coming back. I know he's pretty nasty, but you just got to be nasty up front. You
guys wonder why Richie Incognito is still playing in the NFL?
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, I practiced against Richie with the Rams when he was there, and I'm just like, I had my head on a swivel when I was on scout team. I was like, I got to know where Richie is at all time because he will come and clean your flipping clock even in practice.
And how much better did it make it?
And he'll laugh at you, and he'll do it again. But it does. It makes you better. And you better come with it.
That's
you got to come with it.
Or you're
gonna get your ass kicked.
Yeah. We just don't have an O-lineman that has that grit to him.
I mean,
because all it takes is one. Because it's easy to feed off a guy like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or you got to have a coach that's nasty too.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a coach that breeds it, and I didn't like with when Wagner was there, Dennis Wagner. I didn't like him because he taught those guys to have a little bit of nastiness to them, and they would do some things, and I'd be like, get in fights and stuff, and I'm like, I'd like to tell him to go, stuff it, and a lot of other words. We don't need to keep bleeping out. I'm a lot more calm this time. We don't need to drop any more F-bombs or go crazy.
Better end it early because we're starting to get a little fired up here.
You're right. So it's just because it's just the offense is just going to continue to struggle. I look at year one with Frost, with Adrian, when he was successful, and he had a guy like Stanley Morgan. And I'm trying to, he had Farmer and Foster, and I think Farniok would have still been there, but I'm like, God, was his offensive line that much better than what he has? I don't think his offensive line's any better. I think it's better now, but they can't put it together. And that's for the amount of snaps they've played. I could pull up the stat. I don't have it in front of me, but you go through all the games that Hymas, Juergens, Farniok, Bo Wilson. Obviously, Ethan Piper is young, and he's playing for the first time this year. But that's a lot of games between Hymas and Farniok and Bo Wilson that have played. And you'd think you'd be able to get some consistent results. But again, I'm really just focused on O-line because that's the biggest gap to me in why this offense and this team is struggling. But also, I noticed when I played D-line, and I played with myself, and then it was Titus Adams, and then it was Barry Cryer. But as soon as a non but Ola, I never was on Ola's side. Just the way we ran.
Oh, that's right.
But when Titus would come out and Barry Cryer would come in, or my senior and Barry came out and Ty Steinkler came in, it was weird. I didn't like it. Because I never practiced with those guys. So all of a sudden,
have the same feel.
All of a sudden, I wonder if that's an issue too, is with this O-line, because you start moving some pieces around, then all of a sudden, those guys are like, "Whoa, this is a little awkward. This is a little different." The feel and just the vibe is just it's different. It's just I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
difficult to explain. But I mean, imagine if you're at your 9 to 5 job and you're used to working with the same person every day, and you kind of got a feel for how one operates, and then they put someone 10 cubicles away, and you just don't have the same flow. That's the best I can explain it. And you're just so used to some continuity, and it's not there. That's very interesting.
Just when you start, because you'd think Monday through Friday, you go across the board, they're practicing. But as soon as you pull out Juergens and you put Farniak in, they bring Bo Wilson. All of a sudden, that whole dynamic is completely changed. Mm-hmm. But you have to do it if you can't snap the ball. And Cam, I'll give him credit. He snapped it much better in the second half. I don't think there was any issues in the second half that I can remember. I think it all was about in the second quarter. All he had the poor snapping issues. But I'm just trying to think of, because it's just not adding up to me why this O-line group's struggling, because they played way too much football. I'm just trying to we're trying to figure it out, and I don't know if we're close or not, but it's puzzling.
Ohio State, Iowa, those are some very good defensive lines, very good defenses in general, but the rest, Illinois, not really. Northwestern, they're tough. They're tough, but it's not like you're facing game in, game out, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 D lines in the country. So you've got to be able to be dominant a little bit, and we just haven't seen it against really anyone.
Going back to the offense, and then we can be done talking about the O-line, but just like when we watched, the nice things about playing on Friday is then you can watch a lot of other people play on Saturday. I haven't had a chance to do that because usually Nebraska's always play at 11. We lose. I'm pissed off. Don't really want to watch football, or I want to go golf or hit some balls or something. But Saturday, got to watch like 3 games in the afternoon, and and they weren't like great offenses by any means, but it's just I watched their other offenses go and it's like, why does it look so much easier for them? Do you do that too?
Well, I put on UCF and I'm watching them play South Florida, and and in my head I'm going, both of these offenses look slicker than ours. And again, it's different talent, different conference. Mm-hmm. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
My God, why they threw that? Like,
I always say, we couldn't even do that play. I say that a lot when you're watching the more dynamic offenses. Wow, I wish we could do that play.
You just see things. I'm like, oh, that was a 1-2 step throw catch. 12. Yeah, I was watching like Oregon State, and it was like that was even Friday night, and I'm just like, wow.
And fighting Mike Riley.
Yeah, well, Chish and Jebbia, and then there's like Tyjon Lindsey, and like there's like 3 or 4 Nebraska transfers from the Riley era playing, and Jebbia looked pretty good actually.
He did.
But I'm just like, God dang, like some timing, some rhythm, and just not like a quarterback that guys can't get open. The quarterback's going with about 3 checks, and he's running for his life and throwing it, to one side of the field, or it's just crazy. I've said puzzled and perplexed a lot this year, but I just still am, because obviously it starts with the O-line, but you just watch other offenses execute, and I'm just like, dang.
What else is bothersome, and usually throughout the season you start to see what the issue is, the problem. It's injuries, always number one. Again, guys just getting reps for not being any good. They get beat out. Mm-hmm. But we have not gotten the answer. It's like watching like a TV drama, and you're getting towards the end of the season. We've got nothing.
Right.
We don't know what the problem is.
No one's died off yet.
It's just
right.
There's no answer. There's no explanation. And usually by this point in the season, you can start to pinpoint that.
Well, I think we have pinpointed as offensive line issues.
Yeah, but specifically, it's like, is it all mental, or are they just bad? I mean, you could be a bad offensive lineman, offensive tackle, and grade out 100%. Every you did your responsibility,
right.
Not like you drove the guy off the ball, but like you said, between the number of snaps they've had and with the talent that they're supposed to have, they should be a lot better, and there's just no answer as to what the deal is.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's just like our mood. Last week we were pissed off, and I don't know if it's like apathetic. Like, I'm always going to have high standards, and I still, like, listen, I'm always more optimistic than pessimistic. So I still look, okay, even though we're struggling, you can beat Purdue, even though we're a 1-point underdog, and whatever. We can beat Purdue. We can beat Minnesota if we're going to get a chance to play Minnesota. I'm a little worried about their COVID cases, and I don't even know if Minnesota will be able to play yet this week. And so I'm thinking, okay, so now you're 3-4, right? If you win those 2 games, then you get your Cross River game against another 3-4 team, or
Michigan, maybe.
Michigan, or I think Michigan's only have 1 win. Same with us. But they could have Michigan. If Penn State gets their act together,
Michigan State,
you know. So okay,
right
no. But I'm like, okay, you can finish this thing out 4-4, and then whatever bowl games happen, if they're going to happen, then you can maybe get a chance to practice some more and prepare and finish this thing off strong and get to 5-4. But obviously that's putting the cart. But that's just the way I'm thinking, because I thought we could beat.
As a competitive human, that's how your brain should work.
Right.
We could win every game.
Well, you got to
win
like
every game.
when you're going through shitty times and struggling, you can't focus on the negative. Like, you got to be able to focus on the positive. You got to be able to focus on.
Between the Huskers and the Bears,
yeah, we got the Bears game on. Recording this on Sunday night.
It's hard.
And their left tackle just got bull rushed.
That looks familiar.
Right.
Gosh.
Oh boy, that was ugly. But you just try to find, and I just hope that's this team. And again, there's tough love, and they need a kick in the ass. The offense needs a kick in the ass. O-line needs a kick in the ass. You got to be able to somehow figure out how you can finish 4-4.
And we can do some good things going into the tail end of this season to build momentum for what will hopefully be a normal year next year. Give us something that feels like this program's turned around. Let's have a solid win against a team you should have a solid win
I just
against.
want to see the offense go and just get them some rhythm, get them some confidence. This team doesn't have
4 or 5 play drive.
We've seen drives, we've seen moments, we've seen first drives, we've seen some really good things, and you're like, whoa, what was that? That was different. Holy crap, that was really good. But then you're like, whoa. Again, that happens. Like, this is Division I football. There's a reason why they have other kids on scholarship. But it's just the inconsistencies of it all are just it's just so surprising. And I just sometimes you'd think they're going to get it figured out and just find something. Find something to hang your hat on for the rest of this year and make something work.
And that's going to be your best outcome of this season. I mean, I hate to break it to you. I'd rather be at this record and having the conversations with you that we're saying, I know we lost that game, but damn, we look good. Just some bad breaks. I wish we were at that point. We're not there, and if we don't get there within the next 2 games, you're not going to be feeling pretty good about next year either.
No.
It's not like the Big Ten's getting any worse. There's nothing but good teams in this conference.
Big Ten's getting, really good. You just go through. That's what I think. Again, our fan base, but I always wondered too. I think from afar, when you're in the Big 12, you look at it, and you're like, okay, yes, you have your Ohio States, you have your Michigans, your Penn States, your Michigan States, but I think people looked at Iowa and didn't think they were very good. People looked at Northwestern, obviously didn't think they're very good. Illinois had, their moments with like the Juice Williams teams, and and like they went to a couple, I think, Rose Bowls because they had those. What was that running back they had? Oh God, he was good. They went to the Rose Bowl. I can't remember who they won obviously won the Big Ten
for
that
Northwestern.
Year. No, for Illinois with Juice Williams and the guy who was there.
Oh, he played for. This is gonna kill me. I could see his number in the NFL right now too.
Oh my gosh.
He was good.
Yeah. But anyway. So you look at Illinois, how they're not great. Then you look at Indiana, not very good. They're, Purdue, these are basketball schools. But then you get into it, and then you're like, no, these guys are pretty damn good. It's just that when they play each other, the games kind of get ugly. They're 14-13, they're 17-14, they're 21, low-scoring games, but they're just physical ass football games that you just don't see. You see the scores, and some people, some teams get beat that they probably should have won. But again, top to bottom, this is the best. The Big Ten, in my opinion, top to bottom is the best conference.
Oh, absolutely.
It has the best coaching in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Name me a shitty coach in the Big Ten.
Scott Frost.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding, James.
But you can't. Like, you look, I mean,
No.
Tom Allen, Indiana, is a phenomenal football coach what he's doing there. Jeff Brom, great football coach at Purdue.
Rutgers, another good win.
Yeah, they got Schiano. I can't think of the guy at Maryland. Oh, he came from Alabama. God, what was like?
I don't know, but they outside of injuries and they were talented last year. I'm surprised that they.
Like, Maryland gets a ton of talent just because they're in that region, like that Chesapeake Bay region. Okay, I gotta pull out my trusty.
They're not like a Chesapeake Bay, Lincoln area.
Pull out my trusty Harold Varsity yearbook. Head coach Mike Locksley.
Oh yeah.
Like there's not a bad coach in the Big Ten. Like, I mean, Pat Fitzgerald, kidding me?
No, he's unbelievable
Great
for what he
football
does
coach. I mean,
for
people
Northwestern.
People hate PJ Fleck.
Look what he's done with the program.
Kirk Ferentz, okay, like
Grandpa
just go.
Ferentz.
I mean, Levy Smith. You're partial on him being a Bears, but listen, Levy Smith's a really good football coach. Like NFL and just so I can't like you can go through other conferences and be like, yeah, that guy's not. How does he have a gig there? And you can see why. I mean, Vanderbilt just fired their coach. I don't even know who's at Kentucky and some other SEC schools, but in Pac-12 you can go down the line there and it's kind of like. So
you're right. And we're not going to have a normal bowl season. I hope we do, but that's my favorite part of the year because you see the Big Ten schools and they just start tallying up the wins in bowl season against other conferences. It's kind of like I told you so moment.
Yeah. How do you feel about Purdue?
I think this just do the same thing and you're going to win the game, in my opinion. Purdue, I think, is not nearly as good as Iowa, and we should be able to control this game. Come on, O-line, show us something. Turn the corner for us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Rondell Moore back. David Bell, really good wide receiver as well. Again, like, Nebraska should have beat Purdue by 3 touchdowns last year, but they didn't. And Nebraska's found more ways to lose games. I'm just looking at what they're, 93% of their rushing attack has returned from last year. The quarterback's back, which had accounted for 75% of the passing yards. Almost 80% of the receiving yards is back. So obviously David Bell, Rondell Moore. But guess who's the D coordinator at Purdue?
Who?
Bob Diaco.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So take the overs.
I think there's about 60.5.
Oh.
So you're thinking Nebraska's going to get scoring some points then?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I've seen anything from history, I think that's going to be the case. So Purdue, a 1.5 point favorite. I think we're a better team. I think if we just execute, we'll win this game. We need to win this game. I don't care how ugly it is.
Man, I think did Purdue. God, who did they play this? I think they
lost to Rutgers.
They lost to Rutgers
in a tough fought game.
Yeah, I knew they played Rutgers, but I couldn't remember if they. I knew it was close. It was like 35-27.
Yeah, so they're on a 3-game losing streak since they had their game against Wisconsin canceled.
That's right.
They beat Iowa week 1, which was a fluke because we know Iowa would probably pound them now. And then they beat Illinois, which apparently we were much worse than. So could be a complicated game.
Yeah. Another 11 a.m. kick. Gotta love those.
I like Bloody Marys just as much as the next guy, Jay, but I'm getting pretty sick of them.
You know what a new drink? It's called a liquor pig.
Ooh.
It's rum. It's I don't say rum because there's a lot of different rums. It's Captain, and it's Sprite with a splash of OJ.
Ooh, sounds quite refreshing.
It's really good. It's something different other than Bloody Marys. I know some people don't like the spiciness. They're great. But yeah, something different that you have in the morning. Really good.
Well, I'll let you know exactly how it tastes about Saturday at 11:08 a.m.
Right. Well, that's our discussion on Iowa here today, folks. Some good things, some bad things, but too many bad things that led to a 26-20 loss and another loss to Iowa for the 6th time in a row.
Oof.
I hate Iowa.
Woof.
They suck. But growing pains. Here's one thought. I'm going to get in this one thought before we wrap this up. Are we, I think I might have talked to you about this, but are we as Nebraska fans and people, we've been spoiled for so long, and this is what, are the football gods doing this to us because we fired 2 9-1 coaches?
Yes.
And they're like, you dumbasses, do you know how hard it is to win 9 games? And now we're seeing how hard it is to win 9 games.
It's how hard it is to win 3. I've always given that a lot of thought. You know, those long treadmill runs when you got to get your brain counting through.
Right.
I never like the coaching rotation in terms of if we're not winning and doing something good in 3 years, you're gone. If you hit the reset button on your program like that,
it backs them up another 4 years.
That's right. I'd say 5.
Yeah.
I mean, legitimately 5 if you've got the right coaching in there. And we've been subject to that. Well, it's not good enough, fast enough. Getting rid of them. You don't know what kind of program Solich could have built. Callahan could have built.
Mm-hmm.
Pelini had more of a look. He had a good window, and he was a 9 to 10 win coach. And
Pelini would still.
He had some other things.
But Pelini, listen. This is a whole other pod if we want to do this. We might have to start drinking because this first pod I don't think we've drank on, but we had enough.
I'm glad we're handling depression the right way.
We had enough yesterday.
Yeah, that's right.
Pelini, I think Pelini would have still been the coach if Eichhorst was not here. Him and Eichhorst butted heads. Eichhorst, listen, thanks Barry Alvarez for sending that guy down here, but he was not the right fit. Him and Bo completely butted heads, and you can see why. I mean, you and I know Bo, and Sean was just not the right fit. I mean, him and Moose would have got along just fine if Moose was here. Yeah. But then I look back at what Solich, and you get Steve Peterson's brought in, and we lost 3 games. But you're looking at, obviously he was 7-7 the year before after you played for a national championship game.
You're going to have that down. Your talent.
But that's what people don't like. You lose a Heisman Trophy winner. You lose there's a sick It's just funny when you talk to coaches from other places and they just laugh at us here for getting rid of some of these coaches. We're like, do they don't understand how hard it is to win in major college football, and you're gonna have down years where you're young, and you can still be 8-4 in down years, and some people are like that's, and coaches are like, God damn, we kicked ass this year. We didn't think,
right,
and we got a lot of it. But then from afar, people are like, why are we 8-4? He was a 4-star recruit, all this 5-star recruit, all this. He did this and this. This is all this hype.
Excuses always come out when there's no win.
So I just feel like, again, partly venting. I was like, are we going through this just to understand, and make people realize how hard it is to win, and then when we do, this thing gets going, appreciate it.
Right.
Appreciate it. Don't take it for granted.
Because you remember how dark it was.
Well, we're in a dark spot right now. It's dark right now.
Yeah.
It's not great. I mean, my childhood was, growing up in this state, was the greatest football, arguably, in college football history.
Yeah, that was the mid-'90s run was
unparalleled.
Iconic.
I mean, it's to what Alabama's doing now.
Yes. It has the same feel.
Yes.
But, I mean, I'm okay if you're sitting there and go, well, we went 9-3, and that's considered a down year. That's great.
Right.
Because, that would be an Alabama down year,
yeah.
3 loss. I'm okay with that. That means you're consistently a double-digit winning season.
But this is, I get it. You want high expectations, but I think those have to be tempered.
Yes.
They have to really be tempered. And I think we're just getting, the growing pains are they're excruciating right now, and it's long and they're terrible. But it's just, part of me is also like the football gods are just being like, you need to understand how hard it is.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to go through this, because once this thing gets going, you better be very appreciative when we are 9, 10 wins every year, and then you get those years to where you might be able to.
You're
11-1.
You're about a bounce away.
Yeah,
or
you might
one
get
more
your breaks.
Drive. That's all I'm asking for.
Right.
Put us in those games against those top tier
And
teams.
win games that you're supposed
to beat them.
To beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and then you go play.
Please,
Wisconsin,
just
Ohio
win the games
State,
you're supposed to
Michigan,
win.
Penn State. Like
you better be competitive. You better win.
Right.
And if it's a bad bounce, a bad call, something like that takes the game out of your hands, we'll understand.
Mm-hmm.
But down here, 3 losses, and they better be the top 10 teams. Is that too much to ask?
No, it's not. All right. Now we're going to wrap this thing up. So, as always, be sure to catch myself, Michael Severe, Sean Callahan, and guest Aaron Sorensen with Tail Varsity Magazine on this Tuesday's episode of Big Red Wrap Up. I'll be breaking down a couple plays as usual. I think we'll go 1 offense, 1 defense this week. And look at some better plays. Last week I looked at some rather poor ones. I'll keep it a little more optimistic this week. So be sure to tune in NET, 7 p.m. And we'll be back in Corey's Basement next week, break down the Purdue game. We're out.
A Hurrdat Media Production.